This week on Lunchbox Envy, the ancient Egyptians entombed their dead with mummified ribs to eat in the afterlife.
It was the filling of a sandwich smuggled into outer space in 1965.
And in America, half of the supply is eaten by just 12% of the population.
It's beef. Hello and welcome to Lunchbox Envy. I'm Rosie, I'm a chef and food writer, and I'm here with QI elves Manu and Jack. Hello to you both.
Hello, I'm really well, thank you. You didn't even ask
I
that.
didn't ask you how you were, but how are you?
It's a very uncomfortable start.
So today, we're going to be looking at beef.
Beef comes from cows.
Actually...
Oh, Rosie.
Oh, she's wrong again. You're always trying to make me wrong, aren't
Put
you?
your foot right in the cow pat there. Most beef doesn't come from cows because cows are the female version of
yes.
bulls.
So, Bos taurus is the species name. Cows are the females. Bulls are the males. Heifers are the young females. And steers are the unfortunate castrated males.
Oh.
And ox is technically a job or like a term for a working cow. And those do tend to be male steers.
And by working, you mean pulling carts and
not for eating.
doing accounts and that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Yes, okay.
Influencers off the oxen.
But yeah, for the purposes of today, I'm going to call them cows.
Yeah.
That is what I'm imagining.
I think so,
in my head.
and that's the layperson's term.
Yeah.
Do we eat both boy and girl cows then?
Yes. So we tend to eat steers the most because the females are used in dairy
Of
production.
course, yeah. The word beef, we use it so much in many idioms and language just in English, like to have beef with someone, to beef something up.
I have some beef with both of you.
What have we done?
Straight off the bat. Where does having beef come from?
So it's 1880s American slang, and no one is entirely sure how it came about, which is really useful for us.
Great.
But they think it might have something to do with the fact that soldiers got quite low quality beef and it made them angry.
Yeah, sounds like.
Do you know what? Fair
decent
enough.
theory.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did have a hard time, the soldiers back then.
So I found a theory that it was there were so many accounts in the mid 19th century in English papers of policemen who would come and tell off a young boy for saying "stop thief," and he was actually just saying "hot beef." And the idea that like it became Cockney rhyming slang for a thief.
What, hot beef?
Yeah.
Oh.
But that seems tenuous to me.
No, I think that sounds
dunno.
pretty good to me. I mean, both of them sound, I'm just quite impressed that it's lasted this long. Like, it's still very much in the cultural lexicon.
Well,
you
it was
know?
used as a verb, so you'd beef someone to like
beef.
have a complaint. And then I think it got supercharged in 1988 when Run DMC, the hip hop group from the late 80s, they had a hit in 1988, which included the line, "Got the strength to go the length. You want to start beef, start beef."
Words to live by.
Words to live by, I think so. And that was when that sold millions of copies, and I think that's where it sort of got popularised. As English people, we're known as roast beefs.
We are still
French.
known as that.
Exactly.
Le roast beef.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
Because we love beef.
We do,
love
but not
beef.
more than any other country. I certainly linked it back to Mrs. Beaton, friend of the pod.
No way.
Mrs. Beaton!
But she basically described so many beef dishes, and it was at the times, the 1850s, when a family would roast a huge joint of beef and then use the bones to make stock and some of the offcuts and gravy to basically make meals throughout the week. You sort of meal prep,
Yeah.
1850s style.
Take us back to that kind of cooking. I mean, none of us have the time, but I would love to cook like that again.
But also, I do think Britain is not uniquely, but it's quite well set up for growing cows with lots of like water and lush grass, big fields.
Yeah.
Sort of wealthy enough population to have a farm and then like the infrastructure to take it to market.
So yeah, I was reading about the history of British colonialism and beef eating. Late 19th century, when people were getting really obsessed with protein, they identified beef as like, okay, this is how we're going to literally beef up. They were really worried that English people were kind of becoming weak and losing their ability to like control the
Tofu eating, sandal wearing English.
literally, exactly. So the way they talked about subjugated people across the empire was very much in terms of like, we are English beef eating, strong, blah, blah, blah. And all of these like vegetarian Hindus that are very effeminate. And
It's very wrapped up in macho culture. It's
it's a very gendered food.
Yeah.
I want to discuss that later. But it's, as you've pointed out, it's an incredibly Western idea that.
Yeah, very much so. But even further back, so the idea isn't just from this kind of colonial like masculinity, but in the 19th century, having a really big cow was one of the coolest things you could do as a rich person. So like the landed gentry got really, really in to breeding enormous oxen. But it was kind of like this ideal of what an animal of that species should look like. So it wasn't just giant cows, it was like giant pigs, giant sheep, and they got like commissioned portraits.
Yes, I was going to bring these up.
So many pictures of like rich dudes and their giant cow. It's the best thing.
Because there's kind of no photographic evidence, so there was a sort of inflationary effect whereby you'd be like, my cow isn't as big as my neighbour's, but he's been painted. Can you just make him 5% bigger?
So
and then
funny.
it sort of spiraled, and you get these crazy portraits of like pigs and cows and sheep with like tiny heads on an enormous body. And
massive.
It makes me think of if any of you have ever been unfortunate enough to be on Hinge, the dating app, at some point in your life. No disrespect, Hinge, but it's usually a dark time. There are a disproportionate amount of male profiles with fish. They are holding giant fish that they've fished as their profile picture. And you're like, sure, but like, what am I supposed to be getting from this? That you're really good at fishing? That's a big fish?
No.
Is it a double entendre? But
It's a catch.
it's a catch, yeah.
It's still subliminal messaging. No, I think what you need to learn is that they're actually very good at getting camera angles, because a lot of the time when you show your fish, you actually like, you hide your arms behind it and you put it closer to camera so that it looks bigger. It's forced perspective.
So is that what they were doing with the cows and the small heads? And
Well, yeah, it's like the
They're
early
just
form
like-
of that.
yeah.
it's interesting, really, when you think about it, those animals are the only animals where we have terms for the animal and terms for the meat from the animal. Because like pork is pig.
We've mentioned before, it's that story about the English farm workers, Anglo-Saxon farm workers around the turn of the last millennium, and their Norman overlords, basically, who spoke Norman French, and the difference between seeing it on the plate and calling it a boeuf or porc or poulet or variants thereof, and then seeing it in the field and being like pig, cow, chicken.
Because they couldn't afford to eat the animals that they were rearing for their French overlords.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's why you had those two different
Yeah.
words.
Do we all around this table eat beef?
Rarely.
Rarely.
I do, but I remember learning how bad it is for the environment. And almost 10 years ago now, I started having it a maximum of once a month.
Oh, interesting. So you actually count how much you've had it a month,
Yeah,
and you
and
stop yourself from
I've
having
got a
it.
list, in fact. I can show you. It'll be very boring audio, but I've got every single piece,
No, it's with the
every
month.
single piece of beef I've eaten.
Okay, actually, he has a lot of information about what beef dish he's eaten every month.
So there's a place called the Nottingham House in Sheffield. They did the best pies. I was living in Sheffield at the time.
Quite a lot of Five Guys,
Yeah.
guys.
Reuben sandwich with cat in Manchester, brackets, immediately post Hong Kong. So he's all bringing back these memories.
You've had a couple of veal ossobucos from
Burgermeister.
Carluccio's, I see.
This is a low point. Madrid Airport Burger King Whopper.
Yeah, I like that one. I like you got the little flag next to it as well.
It has helped me cut down on my beef, but it's also made it more of a treat, because I
Yeah.
think instead of going full vegan, because only 5% of the population will be convinced to, the way to cut down our carbon emissions and land use and water use is to eat less of the damaging stuff, but more people do it, rather than a tiny percentage of people cutting it all out. So I think if everyone just reduced their beef by about 20%, that's the lowest hanging fruit for carbon footprints. Some more stats. Beef production uses about 60% of the world's agricultural land, but produces less than 5% of the protein and less than 2% of the calories that feed the global population. So it's incredibly wasteful in terms of land use. And actually something I learned in, I think it was GCSE biology, maybe A-level, is it's a middleman. If you imagine the sun you're shining down on a field of plants, they'll absorb a percentage of that energy and turn it into edible matter. And then if we eat those plants, we take in 100% of their edible matter. If we then feed it to an animal, then it wastes a lot of that energy on moving, keeping itself warm, and it excretes some of it just as waste. And therefore, you only get about 1% of its energy in terms of edible protein and calories that we can consume. So it's just like it's almost never, I mean, even chicken if you ate the corn that the chicken was eating, that would be much more efficient.
But none of this is to do with efficiency, though. We're going off like it's delicious.
That's true.
Which is the problem.
Yes, it is unfortunately delicious.
There is a huge variety within beef, as all foods. But I've got a graph in front of me with the kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per 100 grams of protein. And you can see beef at the top here has such a huge range. So if you're getting grass-fed beef on land that can't be used for anything else, just grows grass, that's pretty good for your carbon footprint. But if you're growing beef in a feedlot on the other side of the world, which eats soy, which has come from rainforests you've cut down, then it's going to be way worse. But what's interesting to note is even the least impact on the environment beef is still worse than pretty much every protein.
Yeah.
But it's just something to bear in mind. Like I say, everyone needs to live and enjoy their life. So I don't think cutting it all out completely is necessarily for everyone. And I've really enjoyed the sort of pageantry of like going into a restaurant and being like, I'm going to spend my beef allowance today. I've saved it up. But I do get to like the 29th every month and I'm like, oh, I haven't spent my beef allowance. I'll just go and splash it out.
Better go to Flatiron. Time for our first lunchbox, and it's me today. A symbolic lunchbox, as it were. We can eat it, for sure. A very nice steak and ale pie.
Lovely.
And for those who are purists about pies, it does have a pastry top and bottom.
Is that bad?
So there is a school of thought, usually Northerners, who think that pie is not a pie unless it has a bottom as well as a top of pastry.
I like that school of thought.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's reasonable. Guys, I'm going to be really honest with you. This is from Sainsbury's.
You don't have to.
Others are available. This is from a supermarket. I did not have time to make my own pie, but it's also symbolic because I would rather eat this supermarket pie than any beef Wellington you could ever give me. My lunchbox hot take is I think beef Wellington is terrible.
Wow.
And I think we've given it way too much credit. And people are obsessed with it. And it's for no good reason. In fact, it's actually one of the worst ways to cook beef and one of the worst ways to cook pastry. It's also hard to eat and it's incredibly hard to cook.
Oh, yeah.
You won't believe how many people have asked me for a beef Wellington
Really?
recipe over the years.
Really?
I was even asked to write a recipe for a magazine before Christmas, and I refused because I said I would never ever make it, and I don't rate it.
This is a
And
huge line in the sand.
I pitched them some other things, and they wouldn't go for it. They said, "No, we really
way.
want a Wellington." Someone else wrote the article. Fine, totally fine. I'm stayed true to myself. But for those of you who have never seen or eaten a beef Wellington, and I wish I was you, a beef Wellington is essentially a giant sausage roll-esque type thing, but in the middle is a beef fillet, so a very lean cut, a very prized cut of beef for the wrong reasons, with a few different fillings around that, often mushroom duxelle, crepes. Sometimes you'll find a spinach layer, sometimes you won't. And then that is all wrapped up in puff pastry. And there's often a very intricate design on the puff pastry because a beef fillet is a very long piece of beef.
And it's a showpiece. You'd sort of
It's a
put it down
showpiece.
in the middle of the table.
Yeah. It's very much a sort of status piece of cooking, I would say. Again, a terrible reason to cook something. Often you will see versions where they have incorporated some chicken liver or duck liver pate, even foie gras on occasion, perhaps some truffles.
Sounding
if you're
pretty
really
good to
Yeah, I was
me.
going to say that sounds amazing.
This is like food clickbait. This is all things that people think are really delicious that are actually just rich. That's why I hate them.
Okay.
Why is it called a beef Wellington?
Well, the much accepted reason why is because it was named after Arthur Wellesley, the first Duke of Wellington, Wellington, who had a stunning victory over Napoleon in 1815. He basically hosted a dinner to commemorate this victory. And there was this idea that he'd served beef Wellington. It actually doesn't seem like that is the case. There's no mention of it on any of the menus, but for some reason it's been named after him. There are a couple of other theories about why it's been named after Wellington. Apparently he did like food that could be eaten on the march, as it were.
That's an enormous thing to eat on a march, though.
It is.
Maybe he had mini beef Wellingtons, like sausage, like pepperami.
Well, essentially,
Sausage
there
roll.
was a big culture at the time of cooking meat in pastry and making them essentially pasties. So Samuel Pepys actually had previously written in the 1600s about very grudgingly having to eat lots of venison pasties. And so it was a generally accepted method of cooking meat. Another story is that it was because it basically looked like a Wellington boot. I actually think there's credence to this, because when you butcher a beef fillet, there will be a ginormous end called the Chateaubriand.
Okay.
Basically, nowadays, they will be separated. But back in the day, they might not have butchered the Chateaubriand off at all. So if you think about it, it would be a kind of L shape, which kind of looks like a Wellington boot. Personally, that's my favourite theory.
Okay,
Yeah. So by the turn of the 20th century, Wellington started appearing on menus and stuff. It really took off after the Second World War. But also it has this inherently British sort of sensibility about it. And that's another reason why I think people liked it, is because they thought it was a very sort of classy, royal thing. The food historian, academic Nicola Humble, describes that basically in the 50s, food started becoming a way of elevating your social standing. And something like a beef Wellington was actually a very... So that was a money move, basically, to make if you were hosting a dinner party.
And immediately post-rationing, so it would have been scarce for the last 15 years.
Exactly. But it's also, like every single part of it is expensive. It's an expensive cut of meat. It's an expensive amount of ingredients to be buying. And there's a lot of jeopardy involved. If you fuck it up, that's a lot of money gone down the drain. The reason why fillet is kind of useful in this instance is because of its shape.
Yeah, it's a tube.
Even
I see.
all the way down. Or you can trim it to a point where it is a very even piece of meat all the way down, so that basically you can cook the whole thing at the same time, and it will, in theory, every part of it, apart from maybe the very ends, be the same cuisson, the same level of cook, so medium rare. If you tried to do it with other steaks, there are thinner bits, there are thicker bits. They also aren't tubular. Is that a word?
Yeah.
So they're harder to wrap in pastry. I would say that the sort of benefit of the fillet is this shape more than anything. Where was I? Okay, so the culinary reasons why it's shit. They are multifold. There are threefold. There's many folds. One, beef fillet. Generally speaking, not a very flavorful cut of meat.
Okay.
As I said before, the reason why it's so expensive is because there's not very much of it. But it's actually not a very hard-worked muscle. What we say with meat is that flavor comes from the use of that muscle.
Okay.
And if you're not using something, it's not going to build up any of those proteins which have tons and tons of flavor in. So basically, a fillet doesn't really taste that much unless you are going to apply some other techniques to it, like curing or aging.
It's a bit like in chickens, the breast, the white meat is fast twitch muscle because they use their wings and they flap them. Whereas the legs, they use them, but they don't need to sprint anywhere. So that's slow twitch muscles. So that's why you get the dark meat.
I see.
So presumably the fillet isn't being used very often.
It's not.
I was going to say why cheek is so tasty.
Because you chew.
Chewing the cud.
Yeah. Beef cheek's great cut.
So good.
It's also got very little fat in it. So it dries out really easily, which means that it's much harder to cook without drying it out. So you're using arguably one of the worst cuts, most expensive as well, which is another, pain point for me. Is like, I'm paying more money for a shitter piece of meat. Why? Then you're going through a lot of hassle to cook it, because you've got to wrap it in all this stuff. All of those separate things take a long time to prepare. It's not an easy thing to ask someone to do. Making a duck salad takes forever. If you're going to go as far as making the crepes, which, because of the fact that they are a barrier, is actually quite a useful step to take.
Yeah.
Also, really annoying. You need like 8 crepes to wrap this beef Wellington.
And also the first one's always misshapen and wonky anyway. So you need to cook
and it's just like endless washing up. And then the most annoying thing is you're going to use some beautiful puff pastry and bake it in puff pastry. It is nigh on impossible for the layman, for the home cook, to get a crispy bottom to a beef Wellington, because when you cook a beef Wellington, you sear off your fillet separately, partly to actually seal the meat to stop juices from leaking, but that's just not a foolproof method of doing that. They will leak, especially when it rests. So essentially it doesn't matter if you've done the best sear of your life. It's just really hard, because at the end of it, when you take the beef Wellington out and you rest it, juices come out.
How do you do it professionally then?
They won't be using puff pastry that we can get hold of. So they'll be using a really high quality, really high butter puff pastry. They'll be using fantastic ovens, which are of this amazing dry heat, which really puffs up that pastry very quickly. Whereas a home oven is just not going to be powerful enough. I actually found in my research that Julia Child suggests, she's saying what I'm saying, it is impossible to cook both the pastry and the beef to perfection if both are raw at the start. So she says to pre-bake a pastry case bottom.
and then
So you've
sew
got
it together.
a baked base, you whack your fillet on top of that, and then you wrap raw pastry around that, seal it all up, and then bake it again. Then you've got a better chance. But even then, you're still going to get leakage.
I think for all the reasons you've mentioned, it is a faff. But I think if you're the Duke of Wellington and you have a personal coterie of 8 chefs and 12 sous chefs, it is the ultimate test for your staff and therefore the ultimate thing to show off to your guests.
This comes to sort of my next point, which is generally about beef, which is that it has become this status symbol, this inaccessible meat. And some of that is because of how gendered it is. Beef is inherently a very masculine meat, let's be honest. It's used widely in marketing. You know, you'll see male products marketed to men when there'll be meat, you know, fire, grilling, hot, nice, that's that's manly, you're putting stuff on the grill. And even men who eat beef versus men who don't are considered more masculine than them. So one of the studies that I found carried out at the University of Pennsylvania asked 384 students to indicate how male or how female certain foodstuffs to be.
Okay.
And when it came to maleness...
Can we guess?
Yeah.
Yogurt is female.
Salad.
I 100% agree with you, and I actually think we should do a whole separate episode on this.
I would love
Gendered
to.
foods.
But the most female foods that came top of that list were chocolate, peach, and chicken salad. Can I just say, so the male foods, what do you think they were?
Steak.
Beer,
food.
steak.
Like sausage.
Yeah, bacon.
The top 3 were medium rare steak, hamburger, and well done steak.
That's hilarious.
There was another study that analysed 23 languages that use gendered nouns.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So English doesn't do this, but like a lot of languages have gendered nouns, and beef in French is masculine, I
Yes.
believe. Le boeuf.
Isn't it true that so in Spain a bridge is masculine and people often describe bridges as sturdy and strong and stable, whereas in Germany the word for bridge is female, and so they're more likely to describe bridges as beautiful and elegant.
Interesting. Yeah, so it
Interesting,
really
yeah.
affects the
It does
concept
affect how you think
of the item, right? So in this study, the majority of languages, hamburger was assigned male in 93.4% of cases. Steak was male in 76%, and frankfurters male in 71% of cases.
If I can give an actual reason, I suspect it's probably to do with hunting. And
Well, there is a theory that basically early modern man, when they started foraging, splitting their diets between meat, hunted meat, and foraged berries, seeds, you know, greens, vegetable stuff, that is when there was a sexual division of labor.
Okay.
Because men continued the hunting and women started becoming the foragers. The theory that why women weren't hunting is basically because it was dangerous when they were pregnant.
I would say, I think the evidence for that gender division of labor in early humans is now coming under question quite a lot.
Is it?
Because we're finding more and more evidence for female huntresses and the tools that they've been using. It's so cool.
Oh,
there's a
lit.
specific kind of like dagger or spear designed for a woman's body. Yeah. It's so cool. Really cool. Also in my head, like women need iron and meat, all of these things so much more.
Definitely, especially when menstruating. Well, in any case, I did wonder if you guys knew much about Wagyu.
Oh, well, I know it's a Japanese breed of cow that they sort of developed because Japan was closed off to the rest of the world. They didn't trade in and out or anything until the Meiji dynasty, Emperor Meiji, in the sort of 19th century.
Yeah.
And then they suddenly opened up to Western ideas and they were like, oh, Westerners eat quite a lot of beef. Maybe we should start our own beef industry. So they developed the Wagyu cow.
What's really interesting is because they were closed for so long and they weren't eating beef themselves because of the kind of Buddhist Shinto background and the vegetarianism that came with that. And it was like very, very restrictive. They basically had this perfect bubble of pure cow that they used for like pulling carts and stuff. So they were able to design like the perfect eating cow with no outside influence from other cows, like you said. Wow. So yeah, they developed these Japanese black cows, which there are a few different types. Wagyu is, that specific type of black cow that's the most expensive. Kobe.
Yeah,
that's the most expensive.
It's actually not.
No.
There's a more expensive one. So Kobe is a really expensive type of beef.
And am I right that they're fed on beer and massaged regularly?
It's
a bit of a myth.
It's a bit of a myth, but it's not completely unfounded. Okay. So the Kobe beef has a protected geographical indication. It's from Kobe, the town. But there's a more expensive version called Matsusaka Wagyu. Okay. And that is nearly impossible to buy outside of Japan. 100 grams of it costs about 400 quid.
Oh, wow.
So that's like a tiny Post-it size piece of this beef. And that is in a restaurant in Paris, which is one of, I think, the only place you can buy it in Europe at the moment. And all of the myths around the rearing of these incredible Wagyu cows to make this meat that is intensely fatty, like lots and lots of intramuscular fat, come from this particular breed of cow. So the idea is you want loads and loads of fat marbled throughout the meat so that when you cook it, it kind of becomes really buttery and you've got all of those kind of nice sugary compounds to react with the protein and the Maillard reaction, and it can happen at a much lower temperature. So when you're handling this Matsusaka Wagyu, it literally starts melting with your body temperature because it's, I think,
so fatty.
It's really fatty, but the actual melting point of its fat is a lot lower than Kobe. So I think it's like 12 degrees, which is way less than our body heat. So if you watch videos of people handling the meat, it's just becoming slick mush. It's so interesting.
I just don't even know if I want to eat that, you know.
It looks really good because it cooks super quickly as well because of that low melting point. So it's really, really tender, loads of flavour. And some of the methods these farmers have used, not anymore, to raise these cows are where those myths come from. So some of the farmers did used to feed the cows beer as like an appetite stimulant. So it wasn't they were raised on beer. It was just like if one of them wasn't eating very well, they'd give it some beer. So what they tend to do now is they have a really strict diet. I don't think they move really.
Because movement is a waste of energy, you know.
Yeah.
I actually read about a different beef that I thought you were going to talk about.
Really?
A different type of Wagyu, which is from Shodoshima Island in Japan, where basically the cattle are fed toasted and pressed olive pulp.
Wow.
Which immediately I'm like, yes, please. That sounds delicious.
Like tapenade.
Can I have some of the olive pulp, actually?
It's tapenade with extra steps.
Essentially, it's so rich in umami, the diet, that it makes the beef really umami rich because it's really high in oleic acid. So it's what you'd imagine. Like if you feed something anchovies for 10 years, it will taste very salty and umami-ish.
What do you think you taste of?
I would say parmesan and anchovies and maybe Toblerone.
Oh, nice.
Okay, let's open our second lunchbox, and that's Jack's today.
Okay, I brought you guys some biltong.
Oh, Oh,
Yeah, I went
Very nice.
especially to the South African shop. It's basically air-dried meat, and its more famous cousin, potentially more famous in America, is called jerky.
very stringy looking.
It kind of looks like meat leather.
Yeah, I
It's
think
like
that's true.
strips of dried beef. Like it's dark in color, and it's not juicy in any way. It's very much dry and chewy.
Very chewy.
This is actually quite a moist cut. You can get much drier ones, like the snap sticks you get. It comes from the Afrikaans words bil, meaning rump, and tong, meaning tongue. So it kind of means arse-tongue, but actually it means strips of the rump, basically. So
I'm really enjoying your arse-tongue, Jack.
thank you.
It is tasty. It is very tasty.
Its history goes back tens of thousands of years. Before the Afrikaans arrived and gave it a name, the local people were drying meat for preservation because there's a lot of game in South Africa and there's a lot of dry air, and the hot African sun means you can preserve it with very little salt. They actually traditionally dip it in vinegar, add some spices, and then leave it to dry. Whereas jerky, you have to heat up, and they often add salt and sugar. And I brought some American beef jerky as well.
Oh,
Okay, so are we doing a taste test? Like,
So I
what's...
thought, yeah, exactly. We can do a little test. So the original jerky would have been llama.
Oh, yes, actually, I've tried llama when I was in South America.
and?
It was like veal, I would say.
Oh,
Way more peppery and flavoured.
I do like the sweetness, though. I like how sweet that is.
Well, if you,
It just tastes a lot more processed, I would say.
I think it probably is. They certainly add salt and sugar and smoke. You might detect smoky flavours. You never smoke biltong unless it's like a specific smoked biltong. And also they heat dry it, so they have to heat it to at least 70 degrees.
For the FDA.
This is jerky, yeah. Biltong is completely just dried in the air, so maximum of like 40 degrees.
That's really, I like that a lot.
I am enjoying, like meditative quality of the eating of the biltong. Like,
Yeah. Well,
I can understand sitting on your front porch just munching on a long piece of beef would be quite satisfying.
yeah. Well, it was kind of ingrained into Afrikaans culture during something called the Great Trek, whereby a lot of Afrikaans people were forced out of their homes by the British and made to walk across South Africa. And so it's a real survival food. And actually, because it's dried, you'll notice on the packet, it'll say made from 200% beef.
What?
And you're thinking, how is it more than 100%? But basically, 100 grams of biltong requires 200 grams of raw beef to make because it loses so much moisture and a lot of the weight is in the water. So it's actually a very efficient way to get a lot of protein in you.
Is it really expensive then by the gram?
This is a sort of central London supplier, and I bought 200 grams for £14.
Oh, that's
Considering you're eating this, it's a snack, like it's a snacking food. That prices it out of most of my normal snacks, like mini cheddars and
That's true, yeah.
I actually, in some of my research, found that when you buy a whole cow carcass, what you might start with is 453 kilos of beef.
Wow.
Right? At the end, on average, there will be 195 kilos of retail cuts.
Really? So
That's-
they throw away so much?
Well, it's retail cuts, right? So
Oh, I see. They'll turn it into dog
there's
food or something.
skin, there's blood, there's offal,
Okay.
which people do make money from, but not very much.
Well, we talked about it in the offal episode. It's the fifth quarter.
Yeah.
That's what they call it in Italy.
Yeah.
But you can make biltong out of anything, really. Shark biltong exists.
Ooh.
No.
Although it's pretty unethical because the sharks are in trouble. Chicken biltong, there's ostrich biltong. Various games. If you go to the supermarket in South Africa, they'll do a sort of game biltong where it's various antelopes like kudu and impala, and they sort of don't really know what you're getting. Zebra biltong, I've had zebra biltong.
Oh, wow. How was that?
It tasted like a less fatty version of beef, really.
Gamey.
Gamey is the word.
I can imagine it being quite gamey.
People use gamey. I don't think I know what gamey tastes like.
In my head, it's like a bit sour, funky.
Yeah, it sort of depends if you're referring to, I would say there's a difference between like gamey hooved animals and gamey fowl. Because like gamey venison just tastes like sort of richer, nuttier, chocolatier meat. Not necessarily for the better. I'm not a massive fan of venison. But then gamier fowl is when they're like hung and aged in that way is actually like, to me, really gross.
But it's so integral to various bits of South African culture that during World War One, a lot of the soldiers that were fighting on the Western Front had it specially shipped in.
Oh.
Well, maybe you can tell me what the spices are that you can taste.
Could there be like pepper?
Peppercorns, yeah. And there's one other predominant spice, which I can taste, but I know what's in it.
The coriander seed.
Coriander seeds, well done.
Good palate.
Scientists did a study and found that coriander oil is antibacterial. They tested it on 12 strains of bacterium that you commonly find in foodstuffs. And yeah, there were no traces of 10 of the 12 of them, and the other 12 had reduced growth. So I think that also helps it to keep in the wild before refrigeration, way before. We're talking 40,000 years ago.
Wow. That makes you feel better about the amount of expensive coriander soap I've bought myself over the years.
You're going to be
Was actually functioning as an antibacterial, not just as a nice
perfectly
smell.
preserved as well.
But most countries have a version of biltong. It's not always beef, because like I say, you can make it with other things like chicken and pork and even shark. So in Nigeria, you have kilishi. In Italy, you have cecina, deng in Malaysia. And then the one I was fascinated by, in Mongolia, you get something called borts, B-O-R-T-S. And it's usually made of horse, occasionally made with cow. And supposedly, now I've read this on an unsourced Wikipedia page, so take this with a pinch of coriander seeds, but it's dried for 3 years. This meat in a really carefully managed environment, and then it's ground so finely it's basically beef flour. You can get it through a sieve. And actually, a side note, you can get biltong dust in South Africa as a garnish. You can sprinkle it on pizza and basically make things taste
So what
of
are
beef.
they doing with that?
Basically, it's like the most concentrated stock you can imagine. So they'll put like a handful of borts into a pot and then fill it with water and then make this soupy, delicious broth. And apparently you could get the whole cow's worth of meat into the space of its bladder. That's how
my God.
dried
That's
and ground
how
it was.
Much moisture had been lost.
Yes, so you could carry a whole
so
cow around.
Weird. Why do we do this?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's not a very efficient way of making stock, but I can imagine it would be a great flavour.
But it's an efficient way to carry it around if you're a nomadic culture and you don't have access to a fridge. You don't want to be carrying around
A tiny, tiny cow.
Yeah. I
It's like
really do
condensed
think
cow.
sometimes I think about the Mongolian palate and I just think we must
Yeah, we
not be
mentioned
even
the
tasting half the shit that they are
Mongolian
tasting.
horse rectum, didn't we?
Yeah.
So speaking of beef broth, in 18th century London, there was this, it sounds so Gwyneth Paltrow, but basically you could pay
Wait, I need to know what your version of Gwyneth Paltrow is.
well, as in it was a bit of a health quacky, snake oily
Oh,
treatment for
goopy.
wellness.
Yeah.
Yeah, like vagina candle.
I suppose. You could pay around 3 guineas, which is a lot of money, and you basically bathe in warm beef broth, which is sometimes known as a beef bath. The idea was you could absorb the nourishment from this basically soup. It's like a cup of bovril. I mean, these were used for all sorts of sicknesses. So, consumption, the vapors, hysteria, all these sort of crazy things we don't really have a word for.
I'm not sure bathing is the best way to imbibe it.
Eating the broth, I understand. I don't think the bathing would
No,
work. You're
I
being
don't
very
think so.
kind about it, Jack. It was a long time ago, and I don't.
You're
think
allowed to say that the people of yore were wrong. I regularly do.
The people of yore.
Shall we move on to our final lunchbox?
Yes.
Yes.
That's from you, Manu.
Today, I bought a vessel rather than something.
Classic Manu. I always get so hungry for these, and then I should have learned by now.
It's
Manu's
never
not
going to be
really
edible.
nice.
We've actually been using them this entire record.
Wait, what?
It's the mugs on the table.
Oh.
Oh.
These mugs are bone china.
Oh, I didn't think about what bone it would be.
What bones?
So
Beef bone?
yes, bone china in this country tends to be made with beef bone.
No way.
And it's really cool. Apart from the fact that it's literally written on the bottom of the mug that it's bone, you can shine a torch through bone china.
No way.
And you'll be able to see the light really easily because it's a very translucent ceramic.
Should we test it
okay,
with
is
my
this-
phone?
Yeah.
Let's turn off the lights.
I hope this works. Oh, wow.
look at that.
That's surprisingly luminescent.
And it's really, it looks a lot thinner than you realise because you can really see the phone torch. That is
Impressive.
really impressive. Yeah.
It's really cool, isn't it? So It's the mixture of materials in bone china that gives it this incredible translucency, but also it's really, really strong, which is why it can be a bit thinner as well. So if you imagine like a normal everyday tea mug, it's quite a bit chunkier than the bone mugs we have in front of us today. And it was first created in 1748 by an artist called Thomas Fry. Did a lot of famous portraiture. Okay. So his porcelain factory, because he was already a potter, was right next to a cattle market. So he was looking at all of these bones, being like, I reckon we could do something with those.
Oh, yeah, waste not, want not.
I know, and he did. So he burnt the bones and ground them to ash, so he made bone ash. And he made a mixture that was about 50% animal bone, 25% china clay, and 25% china stone. And today, the kind of ratios are a bit different. It depends who's making the mug, but it will still be like predominantly animal bone in these mugs. So,
so not suitable for vegetarians?
Not at all. Like your mugs might not be vegan. You need to check.
Because obviously, like there is the adage that tea tastes best in bone china. Why?
I think that's because of the, if I may.
Yeah.
My theory is that it's because it can be thinner, and when you drink any liquid from a thin rim, you get more oxygen and it brings out the flavours much more.
Oh, like with a wine glass.
Yeah. If you really love tea, drink it from a wine glass and you'll get all the flavours.
A wine glass?
Yeah.
Careful though, don't do that.
It's too hot.
Too hot. Yeah. And it might crack your glass because it's not heat safe.
No.
There is also a safety warning with using antique bone china specifically, because they used to use lead in the glaze. So if you're putting hot liquids in a lead glaze mug, you're gonna get sick.
I've got a lot of properly vintage crockery. Not mugs, admittedly, but I've been wondering for years if I've been slowly poisoning myself with lead. But I've not done anything about it.
Explains why your skin's all hanging off.
Yes.
So in 2015, it's actually not far off what we're talking about. There's an artist called Justin Crowe who decided to make human bone china. He didn't add the bone dust to the actual clay. He decided to glaze his ceramics with it instead. But apparently it's quite a common joke between ceramicists is, how do you want to be immortalized? How do you want to go? I want to be made into a set of plates and cups.
That's a classic potter's joke, that.
It's pretty good. We actually know someone who, a friend of theirs passed away, and their partner got their ashes turned into an egg timer, like one of the kind of sand timers you turn up.
Such a good idea.
It's really
story,
good. Yes.
Is bone china made from waste product bones now?
Yes, it will be.
Okay.
So this is exactly what I wanted to talk about, is the amount of cow that actually goes into creating things that are not edible.
Okay.
So in the UK today, there are about 9.2 million live cattle. Just under 3 million are killed a year, and only 60% of those dead animals are going to go for like human consumption. We're going to eat them. The 40% of that dead carcass is used for so many other things.
Right.
Humans have been able to turn cows into basically anything. I have a list in front of me that's 2 pages long, which includes photographic
2
film.
pages long.
I'm just reading over your shoulder.
Insane. Like shampoo, plastics, paint, lipstick, tooth combs, gummy bears, insulin, all of these things.
Deodorant.
We really are not as vegan as we thought we were.
No,
What did I mention on a previous episode? When Britain upgraded to plastic banknotes, someone worked out that there was beef tallow.
Exactly.
And therefore they're not suitable for vegetarians.
Yeah. So the tallow is a beef fat. That goes into loads of stuff. And there's like quite a big fad for tallow skincare at the moment. I don't know if you've seen.
There is.
People are literally just putting beef fat onto their face. Not even like a kind of middleman through a banknote. They're just like smacking it on.
And also beef colostrum, like dairy colostrum, because it's really, really, really high in protein and also lots of other things.
So that's the first milk that
first milk from
breastfeeding mammals.
Cows, breastfeeding mammals.
So another use for tallow, the US military are experimenting with it to make biofuel for jet engines.
Oh, cool.
Sick. And I mean, another famous use, not for tallow, but for glycerin, which is a byproduct of beef fat, is explosives.
Oh, nitroglycerin. Okay.
Exactly. So you can do a lot of damage with a cow. You can also use glycerin in baking, famously.
Yeah, and you can use it in food styling to make fruits look like they've got dewy water on.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so is it a result of the trying to use up waste product beef that we've decided to put it in all these things? Or are we now reliant on beef or cow products being in all of these things, which means that it's a self-perpetuating cycle that we now cannot live without cow and beef product?
I'd say if everyone stopped eating cows tomorrow, we would not breed cows to make this incredible list of products. I think this is very much us doing our best to use up an animal which is very, very difficult to grow and very resource intensive.
The main value of a cow is still its meat.
Yes.
I imagine.
Yeah.
I think so. So the ones on this list that I got really excited about, catgut strings.
Oh, from violins.
Yes. So catgut strings have nothing to do with cats. We've never used catguts to make musical instrument strings.
That's so funny.
It's cattle gut.
Oh, wow.
So stringed instruments like harps, guitars, lutes, the strings of them were made using cow intestines that were like highly twisted, highly processed. And what's really cool is that practice of making strings from these instruments directly translated into making the strings that go on tennis rackets.
Oh, cool.
So there's a company in Lyon in France called Babolat, and they used to make catgut strings for instruments. And a couple of years after Britain formalised the rules for tennis, the sport, so that was in 1874, they decided to start stringing tennis rackets. And now their strings are like used by some of the best players in the world.
Wait, Babolat tennis?
I mean, they've been going for a really long time, and the process is really similar. So you basically just like clean a load of guts. You're kind of painstakingly going through them by hand, sorting for any imperfections. They're cleaned under UV light, and then you have to like set them into certain sets, and it takes about 2 cows to make one 12-meter long string, which you'll string a racket with. And the process takes about a month to make one single string.
So they're still using 2 cows to make tennis rackets.
Djokovic
And they're giving me a hard time about having a fucking hamburger on a Friday night. Are you kidding me? That's it for this week's edition of Lunchbox Envy.
You can follow our socials for foodie facts and podcast updates. We are on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Lunchbox Envy Pod.
You can also get in touch and send us your facts, recipes, and questions by emailing us lunchbox@qi.com.
Rosie, any parting recipes to recommend?
I have written what I consider to be the pie to end all pie recipes in my cookbook. It is my beef shin and Guinness pie. It has a suet crust. We didn't even touch on suet, but suet is good shit. Suet crust, braised beef shin filling. It's fabulous, and I recommend you buy my cookbook, Good Time Cooking, just to make it.
And not a duck cell in sight.
No, it is a 2-day process, but it's worth it much more than a beef Wellington.
Sounds delicious.
Nice.
We will absolutely have to come back to beef for a second helping because there is still so much we haven't said.
So much meat on the bone.
Oh.
Yes, but until then, we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Lunchbox Envy was hosted by Jack Chambers, Manu Onryo, and me, Rosie McKean. It was produced by Alex Bell. This has been a quite interesting podcast.